What's up? What's up? Welcome back to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. I'm Jason Bound from Hard Money Bankers, co-host Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. Depending on when you are watching this podcast, happy holidays, happy New Year. This episode is in the process of getting released as we're ending 2024 and entering 2025. And we figured we, might as well do an episode with just myself and Ian. With no guest this particular episode. We've had a lot of great guests in 2024, and we're going to continue to have some great guests in 2025. But we're going to keep this one ourselves and talk about some learning lessons that we both had throughout the year. And we'll see where else this episode goes. Maybe we'll talk about some goal setting and some goals that we have in place for the upcoming year as well.
Yeah, no, it's good that we do these. I felt like it was almost going to slip out from under us and we weren't going to get to it. But, when you look back, it's so hard to look in the future. It's so easy to look in the future. I don't know what the saying is, right? Like you could dream up a bunch of ideas, but then you got to go out and execute on it. And when you look back, you're like, holy shit, I did do a lot, even though in real time it feels like sometimes you're not doing anything or you're stuck or, you don't know which way it's going. It's always interesting to see where you've gone in just 12 months and, what you think your future is for the next year. So it'll be fun to review this. And, honestly, Jay, kick it off. What's one thing that you've learned here in 2024 you want to?
Well, it's funny that you kind of just said that whole thing related to looking back and reflecting and determining your wins. So, obviously both of us have been pretty habitual in reading books and podcasts, and we 80% of our reading is the same books, just because it's good to talk to somebody about what they got out of the book compared to what you got out of the book, because we all read a book, we're all going to get different things based on our situation. And I just finished From Gap to Gain, and which I really liked. And we have as we're recording this, we have a few more days until the end of the year, and I don't know if I'm going to have fully finish another one. So that might be the last book that I read in 2024. And one of the things that was a big takeaway was a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, successful people in general, they always have a lot of stress and anxiety because they always think they're failures and they're starting from scratch. Like every day they wake up, and if they don't hit their goals, or if they don't continue to move the needle forward, they kind of feel like a failure because the starting line is always today, right, instead of the past. But like when you do goal setting, one of the big ways to do goal setting, obviously, is you create something massive in the future, and then babies, and then you kind of break it down into a smaller time period, and you see these baby steps, and you only have to do baby steps in order to accomplish that. So you go backwards and think about it the same way. Like, where were you a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? A lot of people weren't even in the same business that they were if you think that far back. I mean, we started in 2007, right? Like however many years ago that was, 16, 17 years ago. And then you look at then compared to today, it's massive success, massive growth. But then you look at it in kind of real time, and it's just slowly. And I think a lot of people, forget about that. And one of the big things they talked about in Gap and Gain is, looking back in the past and then bringing that full circle into the future. And you see kind of the massive gains, like the extraordinary gains, that are out there. And, one way to represent that kind of in real time is documenting your wins that you have. And one takeaway I got from that book that I really, really like, and this episode's not about that book, obviously, but this episode is about some learning lessons and some goals moving forward, was documenting your wins. And one of the things that they stated is every night before you go to sleep, write down 3 wins that you had for the day, and as well as kind of plan out or think through kind of what tomorrow is going to bring, and what would have to happen tomorrow to make it a winning day. And depending on where you're at, a win could be like cold calling someone, or it's not like necessarily something gigantically massive. Could be, but it could just be what was a win that you had today. And if you think about it right now, and what's a win that you went to sleep today and you had a win? It could just be like, hey, I recorded a podcast, or I secured, $50,000 from, new investor, or we sold a self-storage facility that both of us were in, right? You can do that. So I was thinking about this, and as I was reading that book, and I'm like, how can I help potentially my kids and my wife follow the same philosophy? So what I came up with, and they're not going to be happy with their holiday present because we're recording this right before or Christmas and Hanukkah for all those who celebrate, is, I have these little books, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I usually have some of these books that I always have sitting around. So literally I got 4 of them in my car at the moment, and I'm going to get a freaking Sharpie, and I'm going to give one of them to all my kids. And then in essence, I'm going to create a template inside of them that says today's wins on one side and tomorrow's goals on the other side. And I'd be like, listen, I know you're not going to think this is a great, Christmas present or Hanukkah present or present in general, but trust me, just trust me. If you continue to follow this, and every night you put 3 wins that you accomplished today and then 3 goals for tomorrow, and you stay consistent with something like this, you will become successful. And we'll see if they like the gift.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see the feedback on that gift, but I think it's really smart. Something that I started earlier this year that's been a massive help is journaling in the I Want book, and it's something similar to exactly what you talk about, is just going in here, writing down goals every single day. And we've talked about it on this show. I talked about, hey, I wrote down that I wanted to win a winning fish in the White Marlin Open, and we did that. That was amazing. And then I've been writing down some financial goals, and then we sold some properties. And there's some things that I'm going to talk about here in a second, but I agree with you. Just journaling in general has been a huge help here in 2024 of creating direction. And, people say, oh, it's selfish to write down I want, but when you start writing down, I want to be successful, but then you got to write down behind it. It's funny that you say that entrepreneurs wake up every day and, they think they failed because they're starting from scratch every single day. Literally, I write, I want to be successful. And then I write why I want to be successful and what it would do for me and my family. That's what's important. But it's not that it's important. It helps you guide your day to be like, yo, you know what? We are doing this and we are executing, and it is taking you to another place in another location. So I'll be really interested to see how they take on those journals that you give them.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they're going to take it. They're probably going to think it's somewhat cool / stupid at the same time, but it's like, hey, you stick to it and then that works. Right. I mean, the I Want thing is important. They talk about that in a lot of their other books as well. And, Hermosi talks about that in a lot of his episodes and a lot of his podcasts, and a lot of successful people do it. You don't have to justify to somebody why you want something. You don't have to justify to something what your wins were or what your goals were. You do what's based off of you. So a few lessons learned this year. And this might not seem like it's something massive. Maybe it's massive to somebody, but it to me, it's not something that's massive, but is consistency and simplicity. I like those words a lot. Stick to stuff. Stick that stuff that's proven. As business owners, entrepreneurs, people with ADD, like all of us, that want to chase every different opportunity. I go down those paths in my head, or I go down those paths just kind of thinking of hey, we should do this. We should invest in this. And then I come back to realization when it's all said and done. And it's or we should just do some more hard money loans, or we should just stick to what's working and what has worked and what's proven. We all want to chase these fictitious, and maybe they're not fictitious, but these fictitious opportunities that seems exciting. Mostly they seem exciting because of dollar signs, right? It's oh, well, if I, this guy, man, he's killing it, man. He made, $500,000 on that flip, or, he, in 2 years, he made $2 million on this commercial, and, I'm only making so-and-so on a deal, and I got to work this hard to do it. And, listen, that's on the surface, right? That's on Instagram. That's not necessarily on reality. And, I think the mature, responsible people know the difference, and they can weed through the manure a little bit, a little bit quicker. And, the ones that aren't, you don't want to go away from your core business model that's potentially working to try to chase something else. That doesn't necessarily mean don't take chances, right? Like, it might be a point that your core business model sucks and you do need to change, and you need to change it up. And it's great to put bets out there on other opportunities. But at the same time, I think keeping it simple and sticking to what you know is important, because that's probably the reason you became successful to begin with. So this time of year, I kind of try to remind myself on that. And, I think we're all trying to grow as people. We're all trying to grow our checkbooks and our savings accounts and our real estate portfolios, and that's important. But, go back the last decade and see what's worked and what hasn't worked and learn from it. And I know both of us have definitely turned down opportunities that we might have taken on years ago. I mean, I just got a end of year distribution on an angel investment that I was involved in, and it wasn't all that great. I was excited about it 6 years ago when I took it on, and it's in a interesting industry that has the ability to make a lot of money, and the company's making a lot of money, but that doesn't really mean that it's dripping down to my distribution every year. And, and that's part of it. And, I'm a small minority partner in that particular deal. And, everyone's like, oh man, I want to own this. I want to do this. I want to own that. Like it would be great. And it's like, yeah, sort of, like it could be, but maybe utilize your resources and your capital for what and go all in on that. And see what direction that goes in.
Yeah. And I would also piggyback on that, block and tackle, simple things. One thing that we've always done is we've been really good collectors of real estate. And this year in 2024, and hearing a lot of people talking about it, we finally achieved a position that, the value of the assets have outgrown the amount of distributions that have come out. And it's taken us a lot of maturing to say, you know what, it's time to sell that asset. Those assets that don't serve us anymore, they got to go. They're a pain in the butt to us. Or, prime example, we got 10 years of cash flow in one sale, really looking at the velocity of money and knowing that you have the right investment vehicle to continue on to push into. It's like, well, that makes sense. But then it's also scary too, because, when you have employees like, oh, well, where's my job going? What am I doing? And it's like, well, no, we're just selling and making better. And the more we make this better, the more profitable and the more stable it is for you long-term. So that's been an interesting learning lesson. I'll agree with you. And it's kind of going forward into 2025 goals and future. I know you said angel investments. I think investing in deals that we understand that we can position ourselves to get good cash flow on. Example, this storage deal that me and you participated in, we're getting a payout. And I think there's some ways that we could have gotten paid a little bit better to make it more worth our time, but we did get paid out in the end, which is cool. But in the same sense, it's like, man, like that, I really like that opportunity because I like the operator. I like the business model. I like everything about it. Just, I want to plug money into it. Next time, how do we make, I don't want to say make more money, but make more consistent cash flow? I think me and you both agree that we're willing to give up back end massive equity pops in exchange for some small, more consistent cash flow up front, because that's more predictable. And that's why we got away from flipping houses. That's why we got away from wholesaling. We just want consistency. So figuring out how to create that again in 2025 and getting back to the basics, I think is going to be a common rule for 25. And I think it was a learning lesson from 24. I think 2024, it really started late 23, early 24. Turmoil in the market really showed you, where your business plan was, where was your execution, what did it look like as a whole for your business to say, okay, are you profitable? Are you making the right moves? And by the end of 24, getting back to the basics, the simple fact that We started an in-person meetup group again. Why? Because people want to see each other. It's the best place. When we first started doing deals, it was the best place we found deals and other people operating. And I know I'm rambling on, but going to other people's events, same thing. You got to meet people that were doing deals. So I said, screw it. I want that in my backyard today. So I think basics as an overarching theme for 25 and probably learning lesson identified from 24 is probably the number one thing that I could say and would agree with you on.
Yeah, and basics or simplicity or sticking to what's working isn't necessarily for everybody. Like if someone has a mature company that's producing dividends, like that makes sense. If you're newer startup and like you're just growth, like that's what you got to concentrate on is grinding and growth. We passed on an opportunity this year because we felt that the asset class that we were going to invest in I don't want to say too good for, because that's not the right term, but like we were too advanced for. Like we were taking a step back, and in essence, they were, it was buying dozens and dozens of lower end assets that had high rates of return, but also high work that we had to do. And as a percentage basis, it was great, but as a commitment of time or down the road headaches, that was going to be high. And that's not something that we wanted to get ourselves involved in. Now, I think, back up in the past, great. That's fine. Hey, I got time. I got energy. I got the capital I can put into this thing. Like it was probably a good investment vehicle then. I'm not doubting the investment vehicle. It had nothing to do with that. That was a good investment vehicle, but it wasn't necessarily a good investment vehicle for our time and energy at this point. Now, if that same operator, who I thought probably could execute, came to us with a $2 million storage portfolio or apartment building or something, hey, here's a value add property. We're going to try to raise $2 million. We can turn this into $3 million in the next year or two. Great. That other scenario was like, a few $1,000s, ongoing. And again, nobody's passing up on a few $1,000s every month. I get that. And if it was a true passive investment, that would be one thing, but this wasn't. So it didn't necessarily work. So it depends on where you are. Another kind of tip that I think we've kind of all learned as we've matured in business related to partnerships is, and I know like you don't deviate from your partnership. I don't deviate from my partner or your partner. We don't deviate from that. But like creating partnerships with people is challenging, especially if you lose control. And like as a passive investment, a limited partner on a deal, like you could have a great ownership interest. You could have a great structure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best use of your capital. This particular deal that I was saying I got a distribution on, it's also a business that, retains a lot of profits year to year. And what happens when you retain profits? The owners are still getting taxed on the income, not just on the distribution that you're taking out. And what ends up happening is because, it needs high levels of capital to continue to buy more product and continue to reinvest in other things, I might get taxed on, I'm just going to use round numbers. Like I might get taxed on $100,000 in income when I only have a distribution of like $30,000 or $40,000 of income. And we own this on a company level, and we have other parties that are involved that have ownership as well. I'm just using that as an example. But like, the company's been thriving and it's going to continue to thrive, and it's a thriving business, but that necessarily means that as an investor that you're in a good spot. Now, obviously if there's a big exit or a liquidity event in the future, maybe, but that's just an example, right? Like that happens. I mean, think about like, I don't know, you got to think through some of those things. And it's not just about, hey, how many K1s can I be involved in? How many business entities does my ego want to be involved in? Because that's not the answer. And, Ian and I have been trying to get creative on partnerships with other people on deals. And we're like, I don't care about being an owner of the project, having ownership. That doesn't do much for us. Yeah, potentially there can be a control level, which I think is important, but also having some sort of partnership agreement where in essence, it's on the economic side of it of, hey, for every dollar that comes in, I want to see 30 cents, right? Like I'm not the owner. Don't give me a K1 on this thing. I don't in this particular asset, I don't care about the tax benefits that I'm going to get from it. But at the same time, like, I don't want liability. And at the same time, like, I don't want to get dragged into somebody's, somebody's mess if something, God forbid, happens to the entity type of thing. So we've thought, and a lot of deals, the operator, the general partner, that might be great for them anyways, because they don't want you involved in the mix. You just want to have an economic interest in it. So those are things that we've kind of creatively structured throughout the year.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes back to where the financial markets were in 24. We probably should do an episode on our predictions for 25 here in the first 2 weeks of 25. But, to parlay this is, I think there's going to be a false sense of security again based on our political environment, that people are like, oh, well, Uncle Donnie's coming back and everything's going to be fine. I don't find that to be immediately true, right? Like, I don't. If there's certain things that he wants to execute, which I hope he does for the benefit of the American people, there's going to be inflationary stuff that's going to happen side by side with that. Interest rates just aren't magically going to come back to 3%, and life's going to return to 2019 to 21, right? So I think 24, there was enough time passed from these low interest rate environments that people said, oh shit, like, this is the market. Now, the market got more stable through 24, which was helpful for all of us, allowing us to buy deals because we knew where the market was going into it. There's going to be some bumps and bruises in the early part of 25, and it's probably going to take 12 to 18 months to see some stability from the new people coming in office. So, again, I know this show is mostly about reflecting on 24, but I would say reflect on 24, watch what happened. Look, see how long it took to stabilize from when the markets really started turning in 23. It took almost 16 to 18 months for people to get comfortable again to start buying. And Jason says it all the time, and I think this is a lesson that everybody should enact on, because I know I tell other people on other podcasts, you're going to do the best deal you can find at the time that you're looking at it, and that's all you can do. And if you continue to remember that, you'll be fine and execute on it. We bought a few assets this year, the most recent one being a 55,000 square foot conversion property that we're doing, which we're excited for. We've started to change our business model in 24. We knew it was going to take 6 to 9 months for that to happen, which we're actively working on. And it's just taking baby steps in the right direction and getting better and better and better. And if you don't do this, you don't do the self-reflection, you don't write down in your I want book, you don't write down your 3 completed goals for the day and the 3 things that you want to do the next day, you're never going to be able to realize the steps that you're taking in the proper direction. And it's so easy to get caught up in, I'm winning all the time, nothing's going to happen to me, or I suck all the time and I'm never going to be able to fix this, right? You need to live in the real moment and figure out what's working, what's not, and always continue to get better. So for me, 24 has been a lot of good learning lessons. I also think 10 years in business has created that maturity level. We're starting to hit that point of, hey, we are in this, we are real, this is who we are, this is what we do, really living the identity a few years removed from the fire department. I think that's helped immensely. I think that 10-year marks a big trigger. So maybe that's why I'm experiencing some of this now. But I'm excited for what happened in 24. I wouldn't trade anything that happened, good, bad, or ugly, through 2024, because we've learned something off everything. And I am looking forward to 25, even though I can't give you a good prediction of where it's going to go. But I just know that we have a lot of good irons in the fire to make money in 25.
It's going to go forward as long as it continues to go forward.
Well, you don't have a time because the clock's always ticking, so we're going to move forward. But yeah, I think 25 overall should be good for everyone, and it'll be good to continue to expand and see what we can get into. So I'm excited for that. So
yeah, there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of different things. I think you got to be proactive and opportunistic and continue to look at deals and continue to try to raise capital and continue to create relationships and continue to market on a regular basis. Like, that's where it all happens, and good things occur when you're in those right circles. And sometimes it's deflating, when negative or bad stuff happens, but it's just kind of going through the motions, right? It's going through the motions. Yep. And I think there's an expectation that, oh man, I'm just going to wait till there's two sides of the coin. The one side is like, hey, I'm just going to wait until, rates go down, and then all of a sudden, my property's going to be worth that much more, and then I can make more money. Or I just want to wait for the rates to go down, and or I just want to wait till the market gets worse, and I'll have a buying spree, and it'll be buyer's market again. It's like, let's just figure out if you wait, you're going to wait forever. Like, there's always going to be something that you're waiting on. Nothing's ever going to be aligned. So figure out your next step and how to make it, how to make it work. It might not look exactly like it did in the past, because even if history repeats itself, it never looks the exact same way as it did in the past. So there's obviously signs related to that, but it might not be exactly like that. So figure out what it needs to be. If you can't find good opportunities, go find good opportunities another way. Right? Like, start. One big, actually, I do have another thing that worked really well in 2024 that we're going to continue into 2025, and hopefully, and we're going to wrap this episode up in a second, and hopefully someone can get some tidbits from it. Is all of us have been stuck, years ago, everything was offline, right? Real estate was offline. And since COVID, a few years before COVID accelerated this. Everything kind of turned into online. Oh man, online's easier. I can just market for deals there, and then I can send a contract over e-sign, and then I can just do things through Zoom. I get all that. Utilize that as a tool, because I hate to say it, but like, relationships are still made offline and things are still done offline. So use that online offline blend to your, advantage. Utilize the tools, the systems, the ease of use from online, but like, relationships are still made offline. We've been very proactive internally to try to do stuff more offline. We stopped our meetup group. We're hoping to get that thing back up and running. We stopped doing some stuff through client meetings. And this wasn't a COVID thing. This was just like, kind of got lazy thing. And it was just easier to communicate with people online. I've been getting back to doing handwritten thank you notes to people, more meetings, more lunches, more visits back into our office, things like that. People coming to our office, like that's important. So what worked for you in your real estate business years ago or yesterday might not work tomorrow, right? Like, you're not gonna be able to go on MLS and just, hey, let me get my realtor to find me a deal. No, you might have to get off your ass and go to the home of a distressed seller and sell them face to face.
Yep. I think the offline business model is going to be huge in 25. Tactile, face-to-face, in person, utilizing what you're doing online, getting people offline, and doing that's going to be big. So I'm excited for it all. I know when you guys are watching this, it's probably sometime after Christmas. Hanukkah's probably going on, and hopefully it's before the new year, if not just after the new year. So hopefully you've had a good one. So, we're looking forward to a good 25. I know we have guests lined up for the foreseeable future, so we're excited for that. If you're in the Philadelphia area, come check out the CRE Syndicate meetup. We're doing it once a month, piggybacking off what we used to do at the real estate or REI 360 event, and we are working on trying to get that back up and running. So that's exciting. And guys, we just hope to see you out there and wish everyone best of luck. And like I said, 24 has been amazing. The bumps, the bruises, the wins, the losses, and everything in between. That's why we do this. And, we get up every day and do it over and over and over again. We're not any different. We put our shoes on the same way as everybody else. We're just willing to get up and go do it over and over and over again. Most people quit. So you can do the same thing. Get out there, go swing the bat. If you want to do your first real estate deal, now's the time. If you want to do your first commercial deal, now's the time. You want to do your first lending deal, whatever it is, just go do it. That's it. It's that simple. So reach out to us, let us know, and appreciate everybody for supporting this podcast. And it means a lot. Like I said, we try to get people that aren't gurus, people that are just trying to share their real experiences, and we try to share our real experiences with you. So we appreciate your support, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.